All right.
Here we go. Thank you. Hey, greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for Social Media for All. This webinar is part of a series that we're providing. We, being Disability Rights North Carolina, are providing for all the staff members of the different Equal Justice Alliance agencies because we all serve people with disabilities in our work. And for this session specifically, no matter what your role is in your agency, if you're engaging in social media, your message should be accessible and inclusive. And so Jen today is going to give us some guidelines and real life examples of things that everyone can do to make sure their social media is reaching the broadest audience. Um, Jen, who I'm so happy is here today, joined Disability Rights in June of 2022 as our communications coordinator. Her background includes work in philanthropy, public libraries, and healthcare, and she truly is a communications specialist. Jen oversees DRNC's all of our communications efforts, including our messaging, our website, and all of our different social media channels. And she does so much more. So I'm going to stop talking because she truly is the expert. And we really appreciate you being here today, Jen.
Thank you. Thank you, Susan. I really appreciate that. I'm happy to be here as well. So let me go ahead and share my screen for y'all. So today we are going to be talking about accessible social media, building inclusion through digital media. And again, I'm Jen Andrew. I'm the communications coordinator at Disability Rights. Why use social media? Or I'm sorry, why use accessible social media? We all know why to use social media. Um, when you use accessible content, your audience is more likely to understand your content, navigate your post easily, engage meaningfully, feel included, and importantly, trust your organization. Why does accessibility matter? Disabled people, just like everyone, use social media to connect, advocate, and access information. Social media is a major gateway to community and opportunity. Millions of disabled people still face digital barriers. We know that inaccessible content excludes and silences part of our community. For many people, social media is a trusted source of information that they turn to first during natural disasters, medical emergencies, and other life-threatening or dangerous events. We really witnessed this during Hurricane Helene and saw that some people were left out of really important information. Following web content accessibility guidelines is important. They provide requirements for making websites, applications, and other digital content accessible to people with disabilities. Some benefits of inclusive social media content. Accessibility broadens your audience, so you can reach more people with your important messages. It will reflect the organizational values of inclusion. There have been numerous studies that show clearer and accessible content leads to higher engagement. It yields better search engine optimization and algorithm signals. And I know if you are involved at all in creating content right now in the current landscape, it is really hard to get folks' attention. We all are kind of buried under an avalanche of content, and lots of things compete for our attention. In addition, it reduces legal risk under the ADA and Section 508. And a reminder that disability affects us all. Everyone, if they live long enough, will experience disability. This is kind of just like a short guide, Disability 101. Disability is diverse and is the only diverse community that it is possible to join and leave. In addition to visible or permanent disabilities are the following. So there are temporary disabilities. These can result from an injury or illness, such as experiencing hearing loss due to serious ear or sinus infection. Situational disabilities are affected by a person's environment or circumstances, such as having trouble seeing a screen in different levels of lighting or difficulty hearing audio in loud, crowded spaces. I know that happens a lot to me. Episodic disabilities are disabilities that have no discernible pattern. They can affect a person at any given time and change how they interact with the world. Examples would be migraines, vertigo, chronic pain, asthma, and some forms of mental health disabilities like PTSD or bipolar. Dynamic disabilities are similar to episodic disabilities in that they usually have no discernible pattern. They swing in severity where all or one of the symptoms of a chronic illness, for example, are more active or worsen for a period of time. Disabilities associated with chronic pain can often be dynamic, with the severity of pain fluctuating over time. So those two are similar. Episodic is just different because when someone's not experiencing a migraine, for example, they don't experience disability. Finally, invisible or hidden disabilities. These are not immediately apparent upon looking at someone. They could be anything from hearing loss or chronic pain to neurological disorders or mental health disabilities. I'm going to talk briefly about different models of disability. These are just different ways of understanding disability from different perspectives. So first we have the charity model. This we see often. It depicts disabled people as tragic stories or victims of circumstance who are deserving of pity. This is unfortunately very common in modern media where a disabled person is seen as a source of inspiration for overcoming their disability. And of course, I mean, everyone here knows this, but disabled people have a right to exist, no matter what they are doing. Cultural model. This model centers the experience of people with disability and the history and culture of the disabled community. The economic model of understanding disability defines disability by a person's inability to participate in work and assesses the degree to which a disability affects an individual's productivity and the economic consequences for the individual, employer, and the economy as a whole. Again, like a very incomplete model. Human rights model. Through this model, disability is seen as a human rights issue and seeks to address the issues of social justice and discrimination that disabled people face through inclusive legislature. Then we have the medical model. This is something I think we might be most familiar with. Disability is perceived as an impairment in a body, system, or function that is inherently pathological. With this model, the goal is to return the system or function as close to quote unquote normal as possible. While some people may appreciate this model, some disabled folks, others feel it's very negative and kind of gives this incorrect assumption that there is a normal body that folks should strive for. And we know that disability is just a natural variance of human experience. Then we have the moral model. Disability is seen as the result of one's character, deeds, thoughts, and karma, and carries a negative stigma as if disability is a curse or a punishment. Alternatively, disability can also be seen as a sign of honor, faith, or strength through this model. So obviously neither one of those is very helpful or positive, but you do see this in some online content, and unfortunately in some religious spaces there's some of this, and it can even be pervasive throughout the medical community, with some disabled folks being made to feel like their disability is somehow their fault. Finally, the social disability is seen as just one aspect of a person's identity, much like race, ethnicity, gender, sexuality, etc. From this perspective, disability is believed to result from a mismatch between the disabled person and the environment. Therefore, it is the environment or society that creates the inaccessibility, not the disability in and of itself. One note here is that different folks experience their disabilities differently. Some emphatically believe that if they were appropriately accommodated, like those with learning or sensory differences, they may not experience disability, but others, like folks with chronic pain, feel that they would be disabled no matter what. Of course, accommodations are important for everyone, but it is, I think it's important to appreciate that nuance. Um, Language. So, when writing content, we want to think about language in terms of talking about disabled folks or people with disabilities. There are two general models, identity first versus person first. So, person first, you may be more familiar with this. The idea is to put the person before their disability, like person with a disability or person with epilepsy. It emphasizes humanity and individuality. I think often when people use this model, they are definitely coming from a good place. And it is often preferred in medical, educational, or policy setting. Also tends to be preferred by parents of disabled children and adults. Then we have identity first. So it places the disability before the person, like disabled person, autistic person. It affirms disability as an integral, valued part of identity and culture. And this model is commonly preferred within many, but not all, disability communities. And if you're wondering why there are folks who prefer identity first, it is reclamation of an integral part of someone as something positive, instead of thinking that someone's disability makes them less important or even less human. Some people prefer this model. It's really important to remember some key takeaways. While there's no one right answer, best practices include respecting the language each person or community chooses. A little research goes a long way here. When in doubt, ask. Following someone's preferred language is an act of accessibility and respect. Alternating person first and identity first language is also a good strategy. We actually do this on our website when we're talking in general about people with disabilities, disabled people. We tend to have both forms in there to make everyone feel included. So I'm just going to go over some common barriers online. I know you all have seen this a lot. So while you're scrolling, you'll see images without alt text, video without captions, images where the color contrast is too low, making it really hard to see or read text. Lots of folks will use complex language or jargon, especially in the legal field. We have to be really careful of this when we're trying to convey messages to the general public. We need to make sure we're not using too much jargon or any. And auto-playing or flashing content. That can be really hard for folks with sensory sensitivities. These are some practices of inclusive social media. So today is kind of like a brief overview of ways to make your content more accessible and more inclusive. And there are numerous resources I will share after this presentation. We can send you all an email with some great links. But today we're going to talk about clear messaging, readable text, plain language, alt text, including clear image descriptions, captions, video descriptions, color contrast, hashtag accessibility, reducing sensory barriers, adding context to links and transcripts. So don't feel overwhelmed. We'll talk a little bit later about doing the best you can, and just starting these practices is good. So before you sit down to draft a piece of content, it's really good to begin with the end in mind. Begin with these three questions. Who is your intended audience? What do you want to tell them? And why will they care? So I know that last one might sound a little harsh, but let's go through it. So again, we know that people are consuming so much content. There are so many competing sources for your audience attention. So we need to make sure that our messaging is clear and concise and to the point, and people can understand it without having to connect the dots themselves. So, and making sure we tell them why they might be interested in our content is really important also, since myself included, I know Many of us have had our attention span reduced to that of approximately a goldfish with lots of engaging online. So we want to make sure we get to our point quickly. Some good practices also include making your text easy to read. So this would include short paragraphs using bullet points, accessible fonts, and again, I'll send out some links to go over those details. Avoiding long all caps blocks, avoiding American Standard Code for information interchange, art illustrations, making sure we use simple language and simple formatting. So simple formatting means not including like a lot of extra spaces. You may see this on Twitter X, where folks are understandably trying to increase their engagement, but it just makes understanding content incredibly difficult for screen readers when we do stuff creative format. And use emojis sparingly. I know this is hard. They're so cute, but they're really hard on screen readers. So it's best to put emojis at the end of your written content to avoid the icon's coded description interfering with the rest of your copy. This also means not using emojis as bullet points in social media posts. Just use standard bullets instead. So this is that ASCII that I was referencing. Again, super cute, but very hard to read with a screen reader. So avoid this, please. Plain language. So some plain language basics are using clear, direct, and easy to understand text. Use lists when you can to make things really easy to grasp. Use concrete examples and predictable structure. This not only helps folks with disabilities, but it helps everyone process quicker. And it's accessible for users with cognitive disabilities. The Center for Plain Language is an excellent resource if you're moving into using plain language for your own content. Okay, so describing images, again called alt text, using for images you include with your content. It's crucial for screen readers. Include the text shown in the image as well. Write your image descriptions in plain language. Try not to be overly flowery or interpretive. Just make sure you're trying to be as objective as possible. It's important to focus on accuracy, not length. So if you post a more complex image, you'll need longer descriptions, but simpler images can be short. Avoid starting with photo of or image of, since screen readers already designate the content as an image. Proper nouns, names of people, places, objects are fine, including names can add useful context when they're relevant. Also consider positional or spatial information, including viewpoint, orientation, relative positions of objects or people in the image. Avoid unnecessary detail. You don't have to describe everything, just what helps convey meaning. So here's a fun example of a good image description. Young woman laden with couture shopping bags looks upward as if contemplating her next purchase. She wears large sunglasses and a plush navy blue coat. Her fingers are adorned with several rings. Diamond earrings dangle from her ears, and two pendant necklaces are layered along her collarbone. So that's evoking a very different image than if you just wrote young woman inside a building looking up, right? And this was taken from a specific brand, which, you know, is not our wheelhouse, but it's just an example of that brand was trying to convey that they are in the business of helping high-end shoppers. Here's something perhaps a little more relatable. Many of us are still mourning Alice Wong, who was a disability justice icon and passed away last month. She's seen in the middle here. So this image description would be photo of 3 disabled Asian Americans, Mia Mingus, Alice Wong, and Sandy Ho, from left to right. Mia is wearing glasses and large hoop earrings. Alice is wearing a brightly colored scarf and an army camouflage print jacket. She is wearing a mask over her nose with a tube for her BPAP machine. Sandy has wavy short hair and is wearing a black sweater. Behind them is a concrete wall with a door. On top, against a white background in black text, access is love and the O in love is a red heart. So this is a really great example to get you started. Different platforms have character limits for their alt text. I won't read them, but you can see them here. Just good to have this as a reminder. And of course, it will cut you off when you've gotten to your limit on each of these platforms. Of special note is Facebook. If the description is a little long, the platform might show you a warning that will recommend shortening your alt text, but you can ignore that. The alt text can be as long as needed. All right, so captions. If you're posting video content, captioning is really important. It supports deaf or hard of hearing users, helps ADHD, autistic users, and people in noisy spaces, and increases watch time and engagement. So you can see in lots of these examples that accessibility practices really help everyone, and increasing our engagement is really important right now when we're trying to share our important messages with the public. So captioning basics. There's two main types of captions, closed and open. Closed captions are captions that the viewer can turn on and off, allowing for resizing and repositioning. Open captions are burned into the video, so they are always visible. Best practice is to include not only spoken dialogue, but also speaker identification when you have more than one. And any important non-speech sounds, including music, sound effect, etc., that contribute to meaning. Ensure your captions are synchronized properly with audio so that viewers can read comfortably and follow along, especially with open captions embedded in video. So there are many, many programs that will help you do this. There are services that you can send your videos to that turn these around pretty quickly and offer great accuracy. Then we have video descriptions. So video descriptions make visual content accessible to blind and low vision users by providing a textual or spoken account of what's happening on screen, including setting, people, actions, and graphics. They ensure that all people can understand the visual elements of a video. Audio descriptions will add an additional narration track that describe visuals, where written descriptions, just writing a clear, concise summary of what's happening. Also, there are AI and other things that help, but just always make sure that a human is editing anything that you might generate that way. Color contrast. So again, when you're creating visuals, it's really important that you're keeping everyone in mind. Accurate color contrast, make sure that everyone can see what you are sharing. So avoid light text on light backgrounds. The industry standard is 4.5 to 1 ratio. And remember not to rely on color alone for meaning. So if someone can distinguish colors, you want to make sure that they still get the meaning. And then I put the website for the web content accessibility guidelines if you'd like to peruse those. Now let's get into hashtags. Hashtags are helpful. We know that they can increase engagement on different platforms, but we have to think about making them accessible. This will help screen readers and improve readability. So it's important to use camel case, which just means that you are capitalizing each new word. So hashtag disability rights with the D and R capitalized, not all lowercase. And to make content make sense when it's being read by a screen reader, place the hashtag at the end of text when possible. This one is something I think that probably not everyone considers immediately as an accessibility addition, but reducing sensory barriers. So avoiding flashing effects because those can trigger migraines and seizures, adding content warnings to sensitive information, using calmer transitions, and avoiding overcrowded graphics. Overcrowded graphics can be really hard to describe, so simple ones just work a lot better. If you're going to use a GIF, make sure it's accessible. Make sure they stop playing after 5 seconds. Offer users a way to pause the animation, have accurate image descriptions, do not use rapid blinking or flashing items again, and have appropriate contrast between the background and any text. When sharing links, if you have your copy and then you want to take your audience to a specific link, make sure you explain what you're sharing, provide a summary, tell users what to expect. This supports cognitive accessibility. And remember that there's no need to add click here. Screen readers will be alerted to links. And then we have, if you have, let's say, recorded a podcast, you want to get a transcript out to your audience. These are some helpful steps if you're going to do it on your own. Listen to your audio once before you start transcribing. Create a first draft of your transcript. Edit your rough draft for accuracy. Format your transcript for easy reading. Finalize the transcription process. And Rev.com is actually a service that we use. They're great, so you don't have to do this yourself. I know we're all short on time. And what I'd like to end reminding folks is that content creators are human too. We are all really busy. Some of this can be new and challenging to do in the beginning, so aim for progress, not perfection. Accessibility best practices are updated often. Fix mistakes when you're alerted to them and don't sweat it. Sometimes accessibility needs compete. Sometimes our audience needs different things. You may need to do 2 different drafts of something so that everybody is accommodated, or people coming to your events, and do your best to accommodate as many users as possible and operate in good faith. Here is a little accessible social checklist to kind of get you started. This website, Accessible Social, she's an industry leader, absolute expert in her field, and you could really get, if you wanted to nerd out, get really in the weeds about accessibility, there's some great content there. I've learned a ton from her. That is it for my presentation. Thank you so much for joining us today. Let me get the other screen back up and I'll see if anyone has any questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Jen. Yes, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A section and we'll read them out loud. You can also raise your hand and we can bring you turn your mic on and let you ask the question orally if you prefer. While we're waiting for those, Jen, I got a question for you.
Yes.
I kept thinking about when you were sharing things about the best practice and things to do. Could you talk a little bit about when people send you something to share or post, what you're looking for and what sometimes the challenges you come up with?
Yeah. So I would say I'll start with the challenges. The challenges are a lot of those barriers I mentioned. So if folks are sending me things that are not captioned, images that are not captioned, or don't include alt text, something that I think is really challenging, this is sort of a specific example, but like if your CEO or your staff member makes a statement and you want to include that, it's best to put the highlights on an image instead of including a wall of text. Most people won't read it, and it's often not captioned. I see a lot of folks sharing really, really text-heavy images on different platforms, and that can feel really inaccessible. I think other things that I sort of see in the wild are, misusing terms for disability, or I think just that kind of sense of excluding folks. Does that help?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking about. And also, I know when I've done this sometimes, people will send flyers for events,
Mm.
and that just is, I don't know, in my case, I find myself going and looking for the actual online version of it. Is that?
Yes, yes, yeah. So PDFs are not accessible. They're not something that you can post on Facebook and expect people to be able to access them. So again, like just having those bullet points of concise, easy to read information, like just the facts. You have an event, make sure you're letting folks know when it is, where it is, all of those things. And I think in the legal field, you're thinking about reaching multiple audiences. You are thinking about part of your audience that might also have legal experience, be in that field, and want the details. So a workaround is to post something simple online and have a link to your longer content that might include all of the information, all of the footnotes, all of those things that a couple of people in your audience may truly need. So again, we talked a little bit about kind of competing accessibility needs, and there's some workarounds there.
I see a question. Here we go. It says, thanks for your presentation. It was really helpful. I'm curious, for images and alt text specifically, if an image is largely decorative, aesthetic, or purely a visual design component, is it helpful to note that? Just for clarification, or is that unnecessary for proper description?
I would say it depends. Like if you have an image that is only decorative, it doesn't contain any kind of text or any image at all, then you may want to note that. But if it has lots of other things going on, I don't think it's necessary to put in the part that's decorative, if that makes sense.
And and this is just me asking this, do you prefer alt text in the image or doing a description in the social
That's
media
a
itself or
that's
both?
a good question. So it feels kind of like a moving target. Sometimes Facebook or Meta, for example, will include alt text when you've done it in the image, but it's not a sure thing. So I think putting it in the body of the text is helpful too. If you just to make sure that folks are getting that information.
Yes. I am not seeing any other questions right now. Do you have anything else?
Just thank you for attending today. I'll send out a summary and some links, and I welcome questions, comments, ideas anytime. I mean, I'm a person who lives with multiple disabilities, but I only have one perspective, right? And so there's lots of things that I miss, and I welcome collaboration.
Thank you so much, Jen. Yes, this will be posted on our YouTube channel. We encourage you to share it with all of your staff, and please reach out to us if you have questions or need help. It benefits us to help you be more aware of the disability issues. So we're being a little selfish here. We're not just we're offering because we want to, and we also appreciate your support. So with that, I think we'll close this session, and thank you all for joining us.
Thanks so much for attending today. Have a great day, all.